Afternoon, peeps. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing? Hopefully you guys are all doing well. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button. If you guys are new to the channel, don't forget as well to like and share the vids. As we speak, so by the time this video goes up, we would have got to 37,000 subscribers. So we've hit the target, people, with a couple of weeks to spare as well. I just want to say thank you so much to all the new subscribers, the old school subscribers that are still there. Yeah, thank you so much. Next year, we're getting busy. There's no two ways about it. Next year, we're getting busy. I feel like I really slacked on the channel in the last sort of 4 or 5 months. But I've decided to keep the studio just because I want to have guests in there. I want to go back to those interviews. Remember, we did Connor Ben, Lawrence Okoli, Andy Clark. I want to do way more of those. So yeah, next year, a lot more content, a lot more live watch-alongs, and no more slacking. I felt like it got so busy for me with DAZN and TalkSport and doing some NFL stuff that I really kind of just didn't do enough on the channel. That ain't happening next year. So yeah, stick with me because we are going to try and take it to the next level next year. All right, we can now do our end of year awards. Remember, I am going to do a live next week, not just me. We're going to have a couple of guests in the studio. If we don't do it live, we are definitely going to record it and put it up. So if we can't work out how to do it live with free cameras and all that kind of stuff, we will definitely just record it and chuck it up anyway. But I feel like I do want to sort of do my own sort of end of year awards now anyway. So we're going to do a few videos. We're going to start with Male Fighter of the Year. I'm tempted to wait until after Saturday to do my Fight of the Year. I know what it is in my head now, but Frank Martin is fighting Michael Rivera on Saturday. 2 unbeaten kids. I think 16-0 versus 24-0 in the lightweight division. That could be Fight of the Year. I don't think it will be, but it could be. So I'm tempted to wait for that one until I do my Fight of the Year. Although I have 2 bankers right now in my head, so we might just film it. All right, let's discuss Male Fighter of the Year. I think there are 2 big favorites, right? I think a lot of people think it's either Dmitry Bivol or Jesse Bam Rodriguez, and I don't have any complaints with those 2. But I still think there are a few runners and riders that we need to discuss. Any fighter that's had 1 fight this year simply isn't nowhere near it, regardless of how good they are. Alexander Usyk had 1 fight this year, good victory over AJ, but I'm sorry, 1 fight just ain't going to get you in. You've got to have a minimum of 2 fights. Terence Crawford, 1 fight this year. Errol Spence, 1 fight this year. So they're out. They're out. Again, Alexander Usyk, fantastic win over AJ, but 1 fight just simply isn't enough. Really and truly, 2 fights ain't enough, but that seems to be the average now for fighters. The only top fighter that fought 3 times this year is Bam. Bam is the only one that fought 3 times this year. That's why automatically, regardless of who he's fighting, and it were 3 good names anyway, but even if it wasn't, you're there. You're there because you fought 3 times this year. Let's have a look at the runners and riders. Inoue. Let's discuss Inoue for a few seconds. Inoue had 2 fights this year. Nonito Donaire and Paul Butler. Paul Butler was an undisputed. That, I mean, just because of that, you have to be in the discussion. But he was a massive, massive favourite against Paul Butler. Donaire, again, a big favourite. Although they had the Fight of the Year, was it 2020 or 2019? But they had a Fight of the Year. But look, Donaire, I love Donaire, but clearly that's not the same Donaire. But he got rid of him. So Inoue has to be discussed because he had 2 fights. He's now undisputed. Both of those fights, though, were in his backyard. But regardless, Inoue had 2 fights. Who else do we need to discuss? Devin Haney, undisputed now in the lightweight division. Went away to Australia twice. That needs to be discussed. He has to be in the discussion. Yes, it was the same opponent. And yes, he was a big favourite going into both of those fights. He was. But still, he's now undisputed and he went away twice. I mean, that gives you some credit in the bank for me. SHAKUR Stevenson is up there as well. 2 fights this year, a unification fight against Oscar Valdez, which was a very, very good win. It wasn't a 50-50 fight. I think a lot of people had SHAKUR as a favourite, but the way in which he dominated Oscar Valdez, you need to give him credit for that. And then he had a fight against Robson Conceição, where he came in overweight. Does that take marks away? But Robson Conceição, for me, beat Oscar Valdez. Very, very good fighter. And he didn't make it look easy, but he was comfortable in that fight. So SHAKUR definitely needs to be discussed as well. Some of you might say Tyson Fury. just because Tyson Fury had 2 fights, the lineal heavyweight champion. I think you've got to give him credit for the Dillian Whyte fight. Like, people might, in hindsight, look back and say Whyte isn't the same, but regardless, going into that fight, Dillian Whyte was rock solid top 10 heavyweight. Some people might even say top 5 or 6. He played with him and knocked him out. And then Chisora, top 15, is that fair? Top 15, played with him, and the referee decided enough was enough. So it's 2 solid wins. And I think, again, that needs to be taken into consideration. But look, let's discuss the 2 favourites first before we look at the other guys that might be in with a chance. It's very, very difficult for me to separate Dmitry Bivol and Jesse Rodriguez. Dmitry Bivol, I think, has had an incredible year. Incredible. Although he was the champion, he went into that Canelo fight as the underdog. Fact. Don't be one of those people that say, oh, well, no, he went into that fight as the underdog and basically fought in Canelo's backyard. Obviously, Canelo is Mexican, but Canelo has had 99% of his fights in Vegas. And he went into his backyard and silenced the crowd after 6 rounds. Like, he beat Canelo. I can't remember what I scored it, but I don't ever remember him being in any trouble in that fight. He was comfortable in that fight against Canelo, who hadn't lost for nearly, I'm going to say 10 years. I can't remember when the Floyd fight was, but it was a long time ago. He's been on a tear. He's been on a tear, Canelo, and Bivol just stopped it. Just stopped it. Canelo at the time, for me, pound for pound, number 1. So yes, Canelo's going up in weight, but Canelo's been up in weight before, and we saw what he did Kovalev. So that's massive. That's massive. Dmitry Bivol, again, going in as the underdog, and for me, comfortably beating Canelo is massive. And then he fights the unbeaten Gilberto Ramirez. Now, some of you will say, well, Ramirez hasn't beat anyone. And I get that. You're right. I mean, when you look down the record, it is quite thin, but he's unbeaten. He's unbeaten. He's massive. He's a southpaw. He's tricky. And Bivol, again, just showed that there's levels to this. So Bivol has 2 solid wins. Solid. Canelo and then unbeaten Gilberto Ramirez. That's difficult to surpass. It's difficult. The only person that gets close to surpassing it is Jesse Bam Rodriguez. And he might surpass it for these reasons. Before Jesse, remember Jesse was a late call-up to fight Quadras, you know. It wasn't supposed to be Jesse. Jesse jumped up a weight class. Jesse's a flyweight who jumped up to super fly. And before Jesse went up to fight Quadras, Jesse hasn't really fought anyone. Good prospect. A lot of people knew about him, but prospect. He's then gone from prospect at flyweight to going into the shark-infested division against the very elite at superfly, and not just hanging with them, beating them up. That's what Jesse has done. Beat Quadras up. He dropped Quadras in, I think, the 3rd round. And look, Quadras is, you know, a legit top 4 or top 5 superfly at the time. Jesse beat him up. I was like, okay, cool. Okay, you're doing that to Quadras. Give him Rung Vasai. Give him Rung Vasai, who beat Chocolatito twice and is a problem for anyone and everyone. Give him him. Stopped him. This man has no respect for the elder statesman in the superfly division. Stopped him. And he did that all at the age of 21. He's 22 now, I believe. All at the age of 21, he did that. And then he had one more fight in the undercard of Canelo, co-main event, big event against Israel Gonzalez. Israel Gonzalez is a very good fighter. Beat him. Wasn't his best performance, but 3 victories. This guy has come from nowhere to become a problem at either superfly or fly. He came in, again, understand, he came in short notice replacement and fought Quadras and beat him. Rung Vasai beat him. Gonzalez beat him. Mate. I don't know, you know. I don't know. Do you go Bivol beating the pound for pound number 1 Canelo and Gilberto Ramirez, but 2 fights this year? Or do you go unknown to the casuals, unknown Bam, stepping up in weight beating the elder statesman in the Superfly division and having 3 fights this year. That ain't easy. That ain't easy. Before doing this, I mean, for the last sort of month, I've said Bivol. I said Bivol because, again, beating Canelo in Vegas on the scorecards, we all know how difficult that is. And for him to beat him on the scorecard, like for them to say we're not going to give it to Canelo, as they might want to do, you must have beaten him. Like just beaten him comfortably. And that's what he did. And then he beat Ramirez. Is that better than Quadras, Rungvisai, and Israel Gonzalez? Yes, it is. It is. It is. It is. Beating the pound for pound number 1 Canelo is bigger. It just is. It's bigger. I know it's 2 fights as opposed to 3, and you've got to give respect nowadays. I'm telling you, people don't do it. Look at the names that have fought once. Most people are fighting once this year. No, I'm sticking with it. I'm sticking with the male fighter of the year is Dmitry Bivol. He's not only beaten 2 very, very good fighters, he's beaten them comfortably. And I've seen it. I was at both of those fights. I was ringside for both. And the way in which he goes through the gears, the way in which his feet, like, he's perfect. He's like a perfect boxer. So is Bam, though. I didn't like Bam's performance against Gonzalez. It wasn't the greatest, but again, it's 3 fights this year. Only 21 at the time, now 22. I'm going Bivol 1A, Bam 1B. So I'm going Bivol as the fighter of the year. I have to give it to him. Another name, by the way, that I think we have to respect, who's had a good year, is Estrada. The Cortez fight wasn't great, but he went in many people's eyes as the underdog in the rematch with Chocolatito. A lot of people thought Chocolatito beat him the second time. So everyone thought maybe Chocolatito is on the up, coming off that win against Julio Cesar Martinez, and maybe Estrada has plateaued a bit, and Estrada beat him. It was close, but Estrada beat him, so he deserves respect. So if I was to do a 1, 2, 3, I would go Bivol, Bam. In my head, I'm thinking Devin or Inoue. Again, Inoue's fighting at home twice. Paul Butler. No disrespect to Butler, but, I mean, there's not many easier undisputed fights. There isn't. Donaire. Is Inoue Donaire better than going to Australia and beating Kambosos twice? The second time, okay, cool. But the first time, a lot of people are like, well, 1 second, this is Kambosos that beat Teofimo. But again, to his backyard. That ain't easy. Destroyed him. Let's be honest, destroyed him. Okay, don't do it again. Destroyed him. I am going to go. This is it now. Bivol, Bam, Haney as my male fighters of the year. I think Bivol's been incredible. And I think, look, with what's planned for Bivol, what I'm hearing the plans are for Bivol could be fighter of the year next year as well. Bivol could be with what's planned for Bivol could be fighter of the decade. If Bivol gets past Canelo at 168 and then goes back up to 175 and gets past Beterbiev, fighter of the decade, bank it already. I know we're only a couple of years into it, fighter of the decade. Really. Guys, girls, peace.